Okay, we're back on now. Welcome back, folks. In case you were wondering, we were on a previous stream because we couldn't hear Jackson on the previous broadcast, but hopefully we can hear you now, Jackson. And we are just a few minutes away, or a few moments away from the start of qualifying. You mentioned that it's hard to predict, but I think given the consistency from some of the drivers, I'm looking at Davey actually, because I've just researched. They came in halfway through last season in F6, and he's got an average score of 6.875 points per race. And if he carries that kind of form into here, he could well be calling himself a championship contender by the time we get to the season finale in Bahrain in May.
Consistency is a really important part of racing. We've seen it many times in racing that sort of pace is incredibly important, and of course is arguably the majority of where sort of results come from, all that outright pace. But countless times in racing you can think of times where not necessarily the quickest driver each weekend won, and it's impossible for one guy to go out there and win every race this season. There's going to be so many drivers in the fight for the win. It's going to be about it's going to be about sort of, rather than focusing on what you do when you have got the pace, it's going to be about limiting the losses that you take when, let's say, you have a track that you struggle at. You then still need to be able to get sort of a solid top 5 result in that race to really call yourself a championship contender, because you could win 2-3 races in the season, and still, if you're struggling on, if you're not winning and you're ending up down outside the points, that's going to cost you a lot of points. And the guys that are getting consistent podiums are going to be the guys that fight for the championship. So it is going to be a big part and a very important part of these drivers' sort of skill, is just keeping up those consistent results and making sure that even when they haven't quite got the pace, they still maximise the result they can do on that day. Even if it is just taking home a P6, just do the best you can, because it's going to make a big difference come the end of the season.
So qualifying is about to begin here in Portugal. We've got 20 drivers in the lobby raring to go for this 18-minute session. There's no Q1, Q2 or Q3. It's just a straight 8 to determine the grid for this Portuguese Grand Prix in F6 in season 30 in the PSGL. So whilst we are waiting on the session to begin, I'll run down on the calendar. Tonight we are in Portugal. Next week we go to Silverstone, and then Monaco the following week, and then we head off to France, then we take a mid-season break before we return in Hungary at the end of February. And we go to Red Bull Ring the following week, and then Saudi Arabia in Jeddah, which will be a new track for the PSGL. They have just updated a few problems with the circuit in regards to track limits on there, but thankfully the latest patch has seen those fixes done. We go to Spa after that one, and then Zandvoort, and then Brazil for round 10, followed by Mexico City and Singapore. Then we go to Austin before we take another mid-season break before we return to Imola, which will be another new circuit for the PSGL, and then the season finale in Bahrain on the 23rd of May.
It's an exciting calendar there that they've put together, and it's a very interesting sort of calendar in the sense that there's at no point in the season really we see similar tracks back to back. There's always a mix. I don't feel there's any point in the calendar there that we see two similar tracks near each other, which I think is a brilliant thing, because I feel like we had a phase in the season where we see very similar tracks, let's say tracks that are hard to overtake on, so perhaps Monaco and Hungary, if they were back to back, it'd maybe sort of feel a bit down after those couple of weeks, and it would sort of, I feel the drivers maybe lose a bit of that motivation. But the fact that, of course, there's going to be circuits in the calendar that people are going to generally perhaps dislike more than others, but it's important to keep those separate from each other to make sure that these guys continue to be motivated, because it is a big part of that form that these guys carry, is that you have to be able to enjoy the track you're driving on to go well there. So I think it's important that these guys have got those opportunities sort of mixed in throughout the season, that it's not just a series of really good tracks and a series of a truly interesting calendar that I think leaves us almost sort of completely in the dark going week to week, because the results we see here today could be extremely different to the results we see in a week's time at Silverstone, because whilst there are similarities between the tracks, there's also a lot of differences. So I think that's going to be an interesting part of the season to look forward to in that sense, because we could see one or two drivers run away with the win today, but next week there's no real reason why it couldn't be two completely different drivers going out and battling each other for the win, because, as I said, the tracks, it lines us up for a great season. and I'm sure we won't be disappointed come the end of it.
No, and it seems to be a very busy racetrack at the moment as Sparks becomes the first driver to begin. A lap is on the medium compound in the AlphaTauri, so going for a lap through turn 1, doing so in 6th gear, then through turns 2, and then you brake in a straight line for 3 in 3rd gear. It turns in very nicely there, does Sparks. Through turn 4, got a little bit of understeer through there, which got caught out by the gradient, quite frankly. Now he brakes around about 75 metres before turn 5, down to 2nd gear, now up to 3rd. Coming out of the left-hander, and then through the kink of 6th, then you decelerate for 7, shifting down to 6th, and then down to 3rd for the right-hander of turn 8, a 90-degree turn. Then this undulating part of the racetrack through turns 9 and 10, and then the sharp right-hander of 11, which does catch a lot of drivers out, but thankfully Sparks is able to keep his car pointing the right way through. 12, no problem. Then you brake for 13 in the straight line before you rotate down to 2nd gear, and then up to 3rd at the apex, then to the outside for this hairpin of turn 14. Very crucial to get a nice exit because you carry all the speed through this sweeping right-hander and all the way to the start-finish line. So you have to say, Jackson, this is a very fast circuit and quite a driver's favourite, it has to be said.
Yeah, the speeds here are incredible. The layout isn't as far as my originally designed for Formula 1, which means that it has some elements that we don't commonly see on Formula 1 circuits, which I think is something that all the drivers get to look forward to. Because that mix-up in the style of corners and sort of the undulation around here, the ups and downs, it's like a roller coaster in parts, and that's something that we just don't really see anywhere else. As we see more and more times going in, Lewis now at the top of the times, just over nearly 5 temps clear at the top at the moment. So it seems some of these guys coming to this session and pushing straight away, others perhaps taking a bit easier at the start of this session and just sort of slowly getting up to speed. So that's another thing to look out for, because until the final runs, we still won't have a good idea of who's the favourite for pole here. But at the moment, Lewis at the top of the times around what is looking to be a very exciting circuit.
Yeah, it was a very fast time that from Lewis. He's done very well in recent seasons, actually. And just looking at his previous record, last season he was runner-up in the F7, which included 3 race wins in Belgium, Portugal and Azerbaijan. So he's already picked up a victory at this racetrack. Kart, meanwhile, the reigning F8 champion, has exceeded track limits somewhere, so he won't be setting a lap time on this occasion. We've seen a mixture of runs being done on the mediums in comparison to those on the softs. I think they just want to maybe get an early run on the mediums just to get a banker lap in and save a set of soft tyres towards the end of qualifying.
Yeah, I think the tyres are going to be an interesting thing here, because the tyre wear isn't that high really for the actual Grand Prix, so in qualifying these guys have pretty much a free choice for what they want to use. So going out early on the softs is perhaps a better idea in the sense that you get to see a more representative start to the session. You get a better feel for exactly what the grip is going to have later on. But equally, those that are going on the mediums, it's also an equally interesting strategy to go for, because of course these guys are all going to switch to softs at the end, but using that set of mediums now means you're not wasting a set of softs that could potentially be used later in the in qualifying, or maybe even the race, because if you use all your qualifying tyres in qualifying, which I imagine quite a lot of people will do, it means that you then don't have any fresh extra soft tyres other than those that you already had. So that means that in the event of a safety car that perhaps mixes up the race a little, these guys doing these early banker laps on the mediums, they're going to have it's only a slight advantage, but I mean, with a field that's going to probably be extremely close, the smallest of advantages are going to mean a lot. So I think it is an interesting call here, because the mediums, going with them early in this qualifying session, probably going to cost them a little tiny minuscule amount of time later on in the session, because they won't have quite as much track time on the soft tyres, but it equally gives them that sort of minuscule advantage back in case of some sort of drama in the race. So it does balance out. And another interesting thing on tyre strategy will be to see what they pick for the race start. Of course, those starting the top 10 probably want to be on the softs, almost definitely. But those outside the top 10 could well choose to start on the mediums, try and go for an alternative strategy to get that grip later on in the Grand Prix. And that's when we start to see this sort of mix up to the order later on in the race, because you're going to want to have, I mean, at all points in the race, you want to have the quickest tyres available to you. But that's just obviously not going to be possible, of course, with a man.
So we've still got a few but Stradiusi is coming over the line for Red Bull with the medium compound. He's up to 12th place with 1:16.8. which is around about 7/10 off the pole time, which is set by Trustmike, who's serving as a reserve driver tonight. Now, reserve drivers' points do count in the championship in the PSGL, and it's been a good effort from him so far. Jake Marsh also heading over the line, and he's gone up to 14th place. Charlie Moon has yet to post a lap time, and is not going to set a lap time on this lap because his lap time has been invalidated. You can resume, Jackson.
I think I was pretty much done, but just on the topic of driver here, Jake Marsh in the Williams. I do have a small insight on him, as I know that he has recently been going through a change of pedals, so we could well see him off his usual pace here today. So I think if he does have a slightly more struggling race today, I think that's going to be an interesting driver to watch throughout the season. As he gets more used to those, we could see him develop to have a stronger late season than he currently perhaps will start the season off. So maybe not going to be in contention for the championship early in the season, but definitely want to keep an eye on to see if his development throughout the season does bring what is quite possible going to be maybe wins later in the season. So I think he's going to be certainly a driver to watch throughout the season to see if he can improve as much as it is perhaps possible for him.
I never got round to doing pedals because I don't obviously have the budget to do that, but it's quite a transition, I would imagine, going from pad to pedals, and I'd love to be doing the pedals because I like the sort of realism of it, and yeah, that would be something for me in the future once I do have the budget for that. Meanwhile, Rafa is on a fast lap. He's 2/10 up by sector 2 on the soft compound. Now remember, he posted his earlier lap time on the mediums, so I think predictably this lap could well put him in 4th place. But let's see how much time he can find in the last sector as Rafa exits the penultimate turn of turn 14, heading through downhill of turn 15, takes the shorter route to the line, and in fact he's gone into the pit lane. So perhaps he wasn't finding as much time on that lap as he had hoped.
Could even be that he maybe was improving, but didn't want to show his hand too soon here. Of course, doing that early lap on the medium tyres maybe shows that he's perhaps trying to hide a little bit at this stage in qualifying. So maybe that soft lap that he was on just then, maybe he was improving and knew that he had that pace, but if he felt that he could replicate that lap later in the session, perhaps thought that it's a better idea to just back off of that one, hide the pace a little bit, keep a little bit for later on in the session, and maybe spring surprise on the field later on in this qualifying. But yeah, that is interesting to see him back out of that. I personally would always want to try and get a lap in as soon as possible, just to play safe in case you do make a mistake, because invalidating is quite possible around this Portimao circuit. Lots of corners where track limits are going to be quite tough for these drivers, so I would always say play safe and go for the lap time, but if he was on a lap there, perhaps deciding it is better to hold off until later in the session.
Just seen Jonah going into the pits, they must have exceeded track limits or something, or lost time in the last sector, so he won't be improving anytime soon. Micheletto, who has posted a time, although it's nowhere near representative, is out on the track in the Alpine. And Micheletto has competed in the PSGL before in the last 3 seasons. Last season, he earned 29th overall in F6, including a best result of 7th in Baku. I would presume he only did a few races given how many drivers competed last season in F6. Now, a total of 39 drivers did at least one race in F6 last season, and looking at Micheletto, who only did I think 2 starts last season, so that could well explain his championship position. But let's see how well he can do in this race, but he won't be setting a lap time on this occasion. His lap time has been invalidated, unfortunately. Chiquito right behind is coming through in the Aston Martin. What can he do? He's currently 16th for the 1:17.3 that he had posted on the mediums. Can he get into the 1:16? So I think that's the bare minimum he should be hoping for. Even better than that, 1:16.2. 5th place for the Aston Martin pilot.
Very impressive lap time there from him. We're starting to see these guys getting closer and closer and closer up at the front, and it's incredible to see just how close the top sort of 6 drivers are. There's 6 drivers that come up by 2 tenths and a little bit there. So if this sort of continues throughout the session, we could be in for quite an exciting Grand Prix as well. So I think that's certainly something to keep an eye on, is just how close the field is, because in the event we get someone perhaps getting poled by a few tenths here, as Davey goes to the top of the times there, just edging his way out front by a few hundredths of a second. But if we see someone come out here and get poled by 2-3 tenths, we can say, okay, they're probably going to be sort of the man to beat in the race. But equally, here, with how close the field is, it could go anyone's way in the race. And also, another thing to think about it is sort of what setups these guys are using. Perhaps some of these guys going for a more qualifying-based setup, others going perhaps more in preparation for the race. So that could mix things up as well going forward. So yeah, at the moment, it's incredibly close times pretty much throughout the order.
Mm-hmm. So Davey, who's fastest at the moment, last season he was 4th on the grid when he was competing in F6. He's gone 3 positions better so far. He's on provisional pole by 0.03 of a second. Bottle in the Alfa Romeo is coming round sector 2. He's not on a fast lap actually, as Sparks has decided to retire from the session early. He's probably thinking more about race trim, so he will start on whatever tyres he can like because he's outside the top 10. Trustmite goes fastest with 1:59, so the first driver in the sub 76 second lap, as Trustmite goes fastest, which is good to see. Straduzzi going over the line for P7, also in the Red Bull. So as you're saying, the times are very, very close. As expected, there are 15 divisions in the PlayStation ladder of the PSGL. This is F6.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Jake Marsh just crashed on the circuit and has retired from the session. That was an on-track incident there for the Williams driver. We mentioned he may be struggling to get used to the pedals, and it looks like he is. He's into the wall there, down through what is not the easiest part of the racetrack, but I have to assume he's lost it on the throttle, which would make sense given his situation. So a mistake there for the Williams driver and costing himself perhaps some crucial track time early in the session. Yeah,
not good to see there from Marsh, but at least he can start the race on whatever tyres he's like, as Charlie Moon just about keeping his car within the track limits. That was very nearly an invalidation. Kart has invalidated yet another time. He's gone back into the pits. Charlie over the line, sorry. P7 it is for him, 1:16.2, so he's very much within the realms of challenging for possibly a front row start. Now, just look to see who else is on a fast lap. Well, Straduzzi is not on a fast lap. Jonah is on a fast lap. He's coming round the last corner now. He set his time on the mediums earlier. He's on the soft compound this time, and it is a 1:15.8. Goes fastest by 0.5 tenth of a second. Brilliant lap there by the Haas pilot.
That is an outstanding lap time there from the Haas driver, who puts himself, well, a little, I say well clear at the top. It's 500ths, but that's probably the biggest margin we've seen all day so far. But a great lap there, and still relatively early in the session. We're going to see more track acclimatization towards the end, so exciting lap times so far in this session, and if these lap times continue to prove like they are at the moment, we could see some blisteringly quick laps come the end of this session.
Lewis is on a fast lap, Jackson, so you may want to pick up on him because he's coming round into sector 2 now. He's over 0.3 off pole at the moment, but let's see how he's getting on through sector 2. Oh, he's invalidated. He had to correct a bit of oversteer on the exit of turn 11, which put him onto the curb, and it was enough for the lap time to discount. So Lewis won't be going fast on that occasion. Bottle's not on the fast lap. Micheletto is next behind in the Alpine. What can he produce on this occasion? He really needs a fast lap time here. I'm sure he won't want to be starting 19th. But let's see how he gets on into sector 2. It's a 51.7, which I don't think is particularly quick, to be honest with you. I know it looks quick because he's already more than 21 seconds up from before, but that's on his unrepresentative lap time. So Micheletto coming round turn 14 and through the right-hander of 15. It's a lovely corner which you go through there. Whether it's in a Formula 1 car, in a MotoGP car, in a sports car, or even an A1GP, it's a lovely corner to get through. Micheletto goes 16 fastest with 1:16.8, and he's nearly a whole second off provisional pole.
It's not a bad lap there still, though. I know we say just under a second off of P1 at the moment, but for his first sort of competitive lap in this session, he can't be too disappointed with that. And I think that it goes to show how close the field is again, you know, just 9/10 off of the pole position time and down in 16th place. It's pretty crazy there. And looking towards the back of the grid, Kart down in 20th at the moment. He is yet to set a lap time. He's about to start one now, actually, so that'll be an interesting watch from him. As that's a new quickest lap at the top of the times there. The Mercedes of Yagazan goes to the top at a 1:15.885, narrowly edging out to the Haas of Jonah. And we have a new driver at the top of the times, and the track continues to get quicker.
It does. We've got 2 Aston Martins on flying laps as well. Hershey ahead of Chiquito, who are going through turn 8 now. Less than 2 minutes remaining, so those who are in the pits and thinking about going back out for one final run need to do so right now, really. As Hershey comes round towards sector 2. He's currently in P11, and he's nearly a couple of tenths up from before, which is good. I think this lap is predicted to be faster than Straduzzi in 10th, but that could be as good as it gets. Chiquito, his lap time has been invalidated, so he's not going to be improving. So we'll stay with Hershey as he's coming round the last corner now. Can he get into the 1:15s and put himself on the second row at least? DRS open, over the line, only 10 fastest for him.
kart racer's troubles have continued there in 20th place. He spins on his lap and is going to lose another chance of lap here. I don't know if he's going to have the time or ERS to get around for another lap. I think he's going to try it, but the McLaren driver facing some issues here in this session, and a mistake costing him a lot of time, and it's going to surely now struggle to get a competitive lap in with... Well, he's starting his lap with 27% ERS. I'll be lucky if he has any left by the time he gets to turn 1, let alone by the time he gets to the end of the lap. So, big issues here for the McLaren driver.
Watching the other McLaren of Trust Mike is through turn 14 now. He's been in contention for pole throughout this session so far. He's been very, very quick. Will this be the lap that will put him back onto pole? Well, Jagershon has come into the pits. What about Trust Mike, though? Over the line, pole position at the moment for Trust Mike by a tenth of a second from Jagershon. Jonah's just starting the last attempt now. Davey over the line for Mercedes. Only good enough for fourth. He did improve, but not enough to move him up the order. Now, who else is on a fast lap? Chiquito is coming through sector 2. He is improving, but not by much. Hershey is not on a fast lap. I think he used that last lap as his run, so his session is over. He won't be in the top 10 on the grid. Chiquito hoping to book his place in the top 10 on the grid as he's coming through turn 15. Now the checker flag has fallen, so anyone on a fast lap can complete it. Michalizzi heading over the line now, displaces his teammate. Chiquito over the line up to 9th, so Charlie down the order and will want to go to Kart, who's yet to post a time. It's not going to be very, very quick, because like you say, his ERS was very low when he started it. Only 14th fastest for him, so not good enough for the McLaren pilot, the reigning F8 champion. And we're looking to see who else is improving. We've got a Ferrari who's coming over the line now. That's Rafa, who's ducking into the pits. He's obviously made a mistake somewhere, or he's out of fuel. Thunderberg not on the fast lap. We'll go to Jasak, who's not on a fast lap. He's not improving. We'll go to Jonah next, because it looks like he is improving here, Jackson.
Looks like he's on a lap indeed as he goes across the line now. Where's that going to put him? And it is an improvement in lap time, and only one position improved, and is second on the grid. And assuming no one behind improves, which looks unlikely at the moment, it's going to be a front row start for the Haas driver with Trans Mike up at the front. But yeah, he's on pole position. He's going to cross the checkered flag there. But yeah, that is pole position for the McLaren driver with the Haas driver Jonah alongside him.
So the gap is just under 0.08 of a second between Trust Mike and Jonah. Very, very close indeed. And looking at the gaps between pretty much everyone, I would say, it's less than 1.5 seconds. So it's a very, very close grid, most certainly. I mean, you could say that some haven't put in lap times that are more representative to them, but it will still be shaking up for a very close Portuguese Grand Prix in F6 in the PSGL. Trust Mike taking the first pole position of the new season. A great start to his campaign as a reserve driver. We could see him in a full-time position later on after this. So here's your grid then. Trust Mike on pole, ahead of Jonah alongside next Jagershon and Davey on row 2. Rafa and Ischik making up the third row, ahead of Vanderbrug and Lewis. Chiquito and Charlie making up the top 10. All the top 10 will be starting the race on the soft tyres, unless it starts wet, of course. Hershey and Tridosi on row 6, followed by Fruitful and Kart. Bottle and Sparks making up row 8, followed by Michalizzi and Micheletto. Marsh, 19th. He'll be disappointed with that. He's got a lot of work to do in the race, as is Jasak, down in last position.
Yeah, an incredibly close qualifying session there for us. Top 10 covered by half a second there. Well, less than that, actually. It's incredibly close there, and if it's even anywhere near as close as that in the race, we are in for one hell of a treat. Of course, as you said, top 10 will starting on the soft compound tyres, will be slightly worn, of course, with their quali lap on those tyres. Outside the top 10, that's where it could get exciting, so I'll have to have a look at that when they're on their way to the grid. Because these guys, it'll be interesting to see which strategy they go for. Medium's probably going to be the choice of quite a few. I doubt we'll see anyone go hards, because they're just, for a track that just has such low tyre wear, it's they're just, simply put, they're just a slow tyre. And there's no real advantage going on the hard tyres here, because whilst they do give you a tiny bit more sort of longevity in them, they don't have the pace to make it anywhere near worth it. So I think the grid will very much be split on the soft and medium tyres.
Mm-hmm. So those outside the top 10 are going to be quite spoilt for choice. I doubt they'll want to go on the soft, so I think it's going to be either the mediums or the hards. So we could well see all of those outside the top 10 starting on the medium compound, which is going to make tyre strategy very, very interesting throughout the field. Let's hope for a clean race as well. Good on-track battles, because less cars means less racing, of course. So the Algarve International Circuit, in case you're wondering, was opened in 2008 by the architect himself, Ricardo Pina. So not Herman Tilke, as you might have imagined, but it was Ricardo Pina, and it's Pina, I should say. So the major events it's hosted includes the motorcycling event, the MotoGP that is. It'll be hosting DTM this year, which is very exciting. It's hosted Ferrari Challenges. It's hosted A1GP, as I've already mentioned, FIA GT, the GP2 series in 2009. I think Sergio Perez may have been involved in that, which is interesting. And of course, Formula One. Can't forget that. It's not currently on the calendar for 2022, but should one of these scheduled events fall through for this year, it could well be called in as a backup. We go on to the formation lap now, and the top 10 all starting on the softs, as is Stradici and 12. All the others are on mediums.
I think that's an unsurprising split of strategies there. Those outside the top 10 part of this race is going to be staying in the long DRS straight, which you quite often see here in F1 League. Start and tries to get pulled along with the race leaders, whereas the medium guys, they're going to probably have their work cut out to try and keep with the top 11 in this race. Of course, those medium tyres have decent pace around here, but compared to the softs, just aren't quite there. Maybe an issue there, I don't know, as the lobby host has left. But yeah, these guys make their way around on their formation lap at the moment and preparing for what will hopefully be an exciting Grand Prix ahead of us. And
yeah,
lots of guys.
I think there's going to be a lobby restart, Jackson. Sorry to interrupt. I think a number of people have left the lobby, so I think we are going to be reluctant to leave this one as well. So that's we've seen a few drivers going for a few spins, but yeah, I think it's time that we do leave the lobby. It's not perfectly normal that we are seeing this, so we're going to make our way over to the menu for the time being. And whilst we are waiting, we can discuss in terms of what else we sort of know about the drivers. Well, De Tomo, who was meant to be in tonight, couldn't do so for whatever reason. He is one of the full-time drivers, has picked up 12 podiums in the PSGL. He's perhaps one of the most veteran of drivers in this league.
Yeah, shame he couldn't be here today to race, because of course that's one of the things, of course, as we see a reserve on pole position, it sort of shows that sort of whilst it is interesting to see these reserves getting the place on the grid, it's also kind of sometimes a little bit disappointing to not see some of the full-time guys, especially in the first race of the season, because this is our first real chance to get in to see what everyone's performance is like. So we could see someone who's not here today show up next week and run away with the win. So that's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on as well, just to see who isn't here that could potentially be a threat to the podium and maybe wins in the future. But yeah, that is certainly one to keep an eye on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, most certainly, and hopefully we'll see him back for Silverstone next week. We mentioned about Jake Marsh GP, who crashed out in qualifying. He'll be starting 19th. He's picked up 13 points in the last 7 rounds. The 3 races before then, he's picked up 36, all of which being second place finishes. So I don't know what it is with Jay. He looks like a very, very talented driver, but luck has not been on his side in the last half of the season. And those second place finishes he did pick up had been in the sort of midpoint of the championship. I think one of them was in fact in Portugal, if I remember, unless it was a DNF. It was a DNF actually in Portugal, so I think it was the 3 rounds before in Silverstone, Red Bull Ring and Shanghai where he got those second places. But Portugal doesn't seem to be the best of circuits for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a track that some people will like and some people won't. It's quite a high-speed circuit, as you mentioned earlier today, but equally it has some of those close corners as well mixed in there. So I think it's a track that does suit some people, but I think it's certainly a track for those that have got a good sort of feeling in the car, because if you're not comfortable in the car here, you will struggle a lot, because there are multiple corners around the lap that are well known for their sort of lack of grip. So if you're not quite 100% comfortable in your car and in your setup, then you're really going to struggle around here. So I think it is a track that I think is a test of the car just as much as it is a test of the driver, because even though we do of course have equal cars, setup is a big part of it, and that's certainly something to keep an eye on in the race, just to see if there's some drivers perhaps struggling to control their cars more than others, because sometimes it's quicker to have a bit of a looser car, something that's a bit more slidey, but it'll damage the tyres, and of course you're at more risk to have some sort of incident if you're struggling for grip more than others.
Mm-hmm. So we are in a lobby now. Well, I am. I hope you are as well, Jackson. I don't suppose you picked up your invite yet from the host.
I am on my way. Just taking a while for the F1 game to work, as usual.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. No problem.
Shame to see a lobby restart so soon after a patch here. But I think that's I think it's part of league racing at this point. You know, it's a game that's got so much in it. Of course, there's going to be issues here and there. So yeah, I think hopefully it'll be worth the wait for today's race. Because qualifying certainly was a very exciting session.
Mm-hmm. It was an exciting session for all of us. I mean, including myself. This is probably the closest I've seen in terms of qualifying. I mean, last season I commentated on F13, which was in fact the lowest division of the PlayStation ladder. But even so, it still produced some brilliant racing on track, and thoroughly enjoyed it all the way through. It was excellent. And one driver who I believe is not around this evening, that is Lynx. Before tonight, he was on a run of 7 points finishes out of 8, including a pole and podium in Portugal. So it's a shame we can't add to that this evening, but we are hoping that he will be back for Silverstone next week. So another driver we were missing for this evening, which would have been brilliant if he was around, but sadly not. So in terms of the other events that have been going on this evening, well, the top 8 divisions of the PlayStation ladder in the PSGL have been competing tonight. Some have been on at 7, some that are on right now, or started at 8 o'clock PM UK time. And of course, you could watch a lot of them, or all of them, at the same time if you wish so. I think there are some that have just finished their events, others are just starting their races. So, of course, there is a delay with ours because of the lobby glitch, but we will be back on. We'll be back racing very, very soon. And what are you thinking for the season then? Because I personally think it's going to be very, very close. I am hoping by the time we get to the last race of the season in Bahrain, there could be 4, 5, or even 6 drivers battling out for the championship mathematically.
Yeah, I think there is going to be a lot of people in this championship fight. I think, as you've mentioned, a few drivers that have not been able to race today, and that's going to certainly play a factor on the championship, because we could see drivers out here winning multiple races this season, and clearly being some of the quickest drivers, but if they just don't have the attendance that other guys have, that's when we're going to perhaps see some more underdog drivers get into the title fight. Because, I mean, that's just on attendance. That doesn't even take into account potentially incidents that could happen in the race, because, of course, it's unlikely we'll see that many incidents. These guys, some great drivers out there, but when racing, incidents are inevitable, so avoiding those is going to be a big factor in the championship as well. So consistency is very much going to be key in this championship fight, because getting a few podium positions rather than getting the occasional win is the better way to do it. So I think that's going to be something that these drivers are going to have to sort of almost look at themselves and how they approach the season as a whole, because of course they're going to want to try and start the season off well and be pushing to get that first run of the season, but equally getting a P2 or P3 in the first round of the season is certainly not a bad result, and it sets you up in a very good position for the championship fight.
Mm-hmm. And Apollo Austin coming in saying hello to you indeed. Do get involved in the live chat also, folks, if you are watching. It'd be good to answer your questions whilst we are waiting to get underway. I want to also take a moment to say thank you to all of those who have subscribed to the channel. By this stage, at the beginning of last season, season 29, the PSGL had accumulated a little over 3,000 subscribers. At the time of recording, we are over 12,300 subscribers in, which is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much for all those who have taken their time to watch what's been some brilliant racing in the PSGL. Whether it's in PC, you know, the best esports drivers, or the sort of casual sort of racers on PlayStation who just love to play racing games, including myself. So yeah, fantastic for all of you to like as well, and of course seeing all the track action that you're seeing, whether it's in PSF1 or PS15 or PSF8 or F6 as you are watching. And Apollo Austin coming in saying, how many pet goldfish is too many pet goldfish? That's quite an unusual question for an F1 broadcast of some sort, but I don't suppose you had any goldfish back in your day, Jackson?
Oh, I have had some in the past, sadly no longer around. Yeah, they don't have the longest of lifespans. I don't really know what the how many goldfish is the right amount to have, really. Admitted that we say for an F1 stream, but we don't have much else to talk about at the moment in this break. I think it depends on the size of the tank that they're in. I think that's what it would come down to in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few goldfish in mine. I think, strangely enough, I had one called Michael Schumacher for some reason. I don't know, because I was just a kid back in the day, just naming fish after, great racing drivers. But yeah, I mean, I have had quite a few goldfish back in my time anyway. So, but yeah, I don't own any goldfish anymore now. But yeah, those were the days when you walked into like an aquarium or even like a pet shop and you could just see a fish sort of swimming around in the fish tank and whatever. It was, that was quite fun. So we've got 20 drivers back in the lobby now. I assume the grid has been sorted because we are starting to see drivers readying up now. So we'll run down on the grid as we are about to get underway. Now the top 10, of course, will have to start on the soft compound because that's what they qualified on. If they fail to do that, they could well be facing a hefty penalty, which would be very, very embarrassing. And so whilst we are waiting to get underway with the formation lap, Jackson, what are you looking out for in the race in terms of tyre strategy? Because you mentioned about the hard tyre perhaps being not the best tyre to do it on. It's the mediums of which are going to give you the optimum grip throughout a particular stint.
Yeah, I think those starting on the soft tyres, I think they'll be trying to get as far into the race as they can on those tyres because they do provide a lot of grip, quite low tyre wear here. You can take them quite away into the race. Those starting on the mediums will be sort of trying to do the opposite. They'll be... I could imagine the pit stops for both the soft and medium strategy being a relatively similar time. Of course, those on the softs will pit slightly earlier. But with a track like this where the tyre wear is quite low, I think those on the mediums are going to want to get to the softs as soon as they possibly can, and sort of within, obviously, reason, as they want to go too soon, because then, of course, they'll end up with blown tyres towards the end of the race. But it's going to be certainly a strategy call, because the undercut around here could well make a big difference. It's not the most powerful track for undercuts or overcuts, but of course, like most tracks out there in motorsport, the undercut does offer an advantage. So it'll be interesting to see what people do on that side of things. Track position is going to be another big thing. Portimao is a track that you certainly can relatively easily pass on. But if we do start to see DRS trains, then it may be we may see a couple of guys in the DRS train back out of that and pit slightly early just to get into some clear air if they feel they can go quicker. We could perhaps see on the opposite end of things some people that perhaps struggling for pace a little bit more, they may try and stay in the DRS train for as long as possible, just so that they sort of try and get more pace out of that. So that's another thing. Strategy not only based on sort of your own tyre wear and your own tyre strategy, but also sort of how you feel in the car and your pace in general. And I think if you're struggling, you'll follow the quicker guys and stay with them. But equally, if you feel like you're one of the quicker people in a sort of that's out of position, then you may try and go for an alternative strategy just to try and risk it and try and get yourself into a better bit of track position for later in the race, because it is going to come down to personal preference in the end what tyre strategy everyone goes for. So I think it's going to be hard to predict who does what, but we can certainly give it a go once the race has begun and try and see what strategies people are going to try to go for. But as I said, tyre wear quite low here, so it's very much in the driver's hands what strategy they go for in this race.
Mm-hmm. So the formation lap is about to begin for the drivers. So we'll take the opportunity to see who lines up where. So Trustmike on pole ahead of Jonah alongside. Then it's Jagershan and Davey on the second row. So two Mercedes up there in the top four. Rafa in fifth ahead of Ischai, Vandenbrug and Lewis on next behind with Chiquito and Charlie. And rounding out the top 10, we've got Hershey and Stradusi on row 6 ahead of Fruitful and Kart. Bottle and Sparks the next behind, followed by Michelizzi and Micheletto, the two Alpines on row 9. Jake Marsh and Jasak rounding off the grid. Now the top 10 are all on softs, the other 10 are all on mediums.
Yeah, they've really split entirely this time. So yeah, it's fully split top 10 and bottom 10, both going different ways. I think my one to watch in this race is going to be Kart in the McLaren starting 14th. We saw in quali that he struggled to get a lap together, and in the end did a lap when his ERS was, for the majority of the lap, quite low. So whilst it probably didn't cost him a huge amount of time, equally it certainly would have cost him a little bit, which will have put him out of position. So he, I think, is going to be my one to watch in this race, just to see if he can try and recover and sort of dig himself out of the hole that he put himself in during qualifying. So yeah, he'd be my one to watch in this race.
Mm-hmm. So this is Trustmike's maiden appearance in the PSGL, as far as I know. So we'll be hoping for a debut victory tonight. We've got other race winners in Portugal last season. Kart racer winning the F8 race from pole position in season 29. And the other race winner we've got in there, just trying to remember off the top of my head. I've got it down on my notes somewhere. That was Lewis, who won the F7 race last season. So he could well be another one to look out for. Keep an eye on Jake Marsh as well. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on from the back of the grid. So Trustmike is leading the field round. Jonah in second place in the Haas. He'll be thinking about that turn one corner, which can catch a lot of drivers out, given the speed of it.
Cars now beginning to line up on the grid for this race. Trustmike will, of course, be the first guy to line up on the grid. The last will be Ecos. I would attempt to pronounce the name. I think I'll wait until afterwards to ask them that. But the cars are now lining up on the grid, ready for today's race start.
So Trustmike on pole position with Jonah alongside. It's been a long month or so with a good Christmas break. We are back ready now for the first race of F6, season 30 in the PSGL. The 5 red lights appear in front of the drivers. When they extinguish, we'll be racing here in Portugal. It's lights out and away we go. Trustmike gets off the line well. Jonah's slightly better though. He's to be alongside as they approach the first corner of the right-hander. Jonah on the inside. He takes the lead. Content behind by the Mercedes of Jagerson. So Trustmike down to second place. The drivers come into turn 3. Jonah in front there with Trustmike in second place. It's Davey in front of his teammate Jagerson in third place. Side by side they go through turn 4. Jagerson back on the inside. He's got back in front of Davey. So Davey losing out a little bit. Rafa's in 5th place, followed by the Red Bull of Ishai. There's the second Haas of Vandenberg in 7th place. It's Lewis, Chiquito and Charlie as they all jostle their way through turn 5. But no incidents so far, as we know, Jackson.
Yeah, they've kept it clean so far in this opening lap. Trustmike had a look up the inside of the hairpin, but was smart and backed out of it. You don't always want to be the leader around this Portugal circuit as they make their way around the lap. Battling throughout the field now is Lewis and Van der Brugge, battling it out for that 7th position. And there's more and more battles throughout the order here, as that's Charlie trying to get involved in this scrap just inside the top 8 positions. But battling throughout the order on this first lap, but it looks to me so far that everyone has kept it clean. Little bit of rubbing down at turn 1, lap 1. But for the most part, everyone seems to have survived, and the drivers are now making their way around the final corner to finish the first lap of this race. 32 more ahead of them, but it's Jonah who leads lap 1.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact between Charlie and Vandenberg as they went through turn 13, and that costs the Alfa Romeo a position to the Aston Martin. So Jonah leads ahead of Trustmike, getting off the line very, very well. He reacted better, actually, than the McLaren. I thought Trustmike got off the line okay, but Jonah got off better. So Jonah in front of them for now, but Trustmike may feel that he's in a better position because he's going to have the DRS, unlike the Haas.
Battling away now, once again, for this 7th position. Lewis coming under pressure from Van der Brugge, and they're all scrapping their way out of the hairpin, getting very close. Multiple cars in this battle now. And just holding on to that position for now is Lewis, but he has now crucially lost the DRS to those ahead. And that could play a big factor as this pack is now going to begin to split up here. And I think it's crucial for these guys in this battle for 7th to perhaps work together, stick together, and try and reel their way back into lead group. And as I say that, Chiquito goes to the inside of Van der Brugge. These guys clearly, it's contact between the two.
Oh, Charlie's on mount!
Off the road. Charlie around in the background. Lost it, come over the top of the hill. That's where Jake Marsh crashed in qualifying. Charlie around, and this pack perhaps battling a little too hard, a little too early in this race, and it's taken its first victim there as Charlie drops to the back of the field.
Yeah, there was a contact, I think, involving him and Chiquito, so that's cost Charlie a lot of time. Trustmike with the fastest lap of the race. He's close behind Jonah. There are 2 DRS zones on the circuit, one on the pit straight, one in between turns 4 and 5, so he's going to come in a couple of corners' time.
Yeah, track limits already becoming a factor in this race, and with JSAC getting that penalty, be important for these guys up front to make sure they avoid that. You can see just there, Trustmike keeping his car well and truly within the track limits there. Not needing to push at this stage, he's got the DRS of the race leader now, so he can just sit there and relax if he chooses to do so. 1.4 second gap between 6th and 7th here, that's the first real break in the field. Apart from that, all of the field is pretty much together. As we do see a battle here between Kart and Van der Brugge. Kart, I said he'd be the one to watch. He's already up into the top 10 here for McLaren, up 5 positions from his grid position. And on those medium tyres, he is making that car stick to the racetrack at the moment, carving his way up the order, and is now going to be trying to get back within the DRS of Chiquito and try and attach himself to the lead pack once again.
Yeah, so the leaders are coming round to the start-finish straight. I think Trustmike's going to get a run on Jonah as they come over the line. DRS now open on the McLaren as Trosmike looks to get past the Haas on the inside. Trosmike is going to take the lead, but this is where he needs to open up a margin, because otherwise Jonah is going to get him back the next time they come onto the pit straight.
Yeah, and neither of them there really using any ERS at all, so just sitting behind, letting the car use the ERS itself. Just as long as you stay close in this part of the lap. Oh, Lewis has gone around. Lewis is in the gravel lane. He's gone way off the racetrack, down into 18th position. And that is tough luck there for Lewis. He's struggling to get the car back underway, and he spins again coming up the hill. He is, I think he's cooked his tyres there. And that's a shame for Lewis. He struggles to get the car pointed in the right direction. The Williams driver started off so well, but getting caught up in battles early on, finds himself down now in 20th place. And is going to be relying for a safety car to come out for him to get back into the fight for the win. But oh, that's another mistake, and that's Coletto down in 19th place there, and another driver goes for a spin. These guys struggling early in this race, and it's going to be important for these guys just to try and get back into the zone as Lewis gets a penalty there. So clearly struggling in the early stages of this race, but these guys, you can tell, none of these guys have taken it easy. The mistakes that we've seen so far, they're all pushing to the absolute limit as Lewis has gone for another spin.
Yeah, so Lewis has gone for another spin at turn 10 as we watch the leaders come onto the pit straight again. Trosmike's built up a good gap, actually. It's not quite 1 second, but he's kept himself out of range of actually being overtaken. So Trosmike able to pull away this time, but he needs to be quick. He can't even do it on the next straight because that's another DRS zone. So it's going to be after turn 5 all the way up to turn 15. That's where he's going to have to find a lot of the time at. Jagersson right behind Jonah, but he's not able to make a move on him. He may have to wait until the pit stops to perhaps perform an undercut on him, as his teammate Davey behind him in 4th place. It's Ruffett and Nischike giving chase, and then Chiquito in 7th, who's under threat from the McLaren of Kart, and Lewis has retired in the pits, Jackson.
Indeed he has. It's a tough start for him. Good qualifying by the Williams driver. Got himself up into the top 10, but in the race it just hasn't gone his way. A couple mistakes, and has decided to retire early in the race. With the penalty, it meant that even if he did have a safety car that allowed him to get back in the fight, that would be hanging over him and probably cost him any chance of points. Meanwhile, I've been keeping my eye on Ecos Sparks, who has been struggling with some internet issues. He briefly lagged out. He's back in the lobby now, I believe, but if you just watch his car, you can see that the internet connection is not there at the moment, and this could well bite him later in the race if he can stay connected, that is. But at the moment, it looks like he could be having some issues with his connection to the race, which could allow those around him to get up another position. But up at the front, it's very close between the top 3 as they make their way through the first few corners. But Trosmike does continue to lead as Jagersson is going to look to the outside here. He's going to try and go up the inside. Can he make that stick? He can't. Just not able to do it right now. But Jagersson in the Mercedes looking like he wants to try and make a move now. His teammate Davey now going to go down to the inside of the hairpin. Can he get this move done? Mercedes drivers switch positions nice and clean at the hairpin. And now the lead Mercedes in 3rd place is Davey, and he will be now looking at the back of Jonah to try and get himself up into 2nd place.
1.8 seconds separating the top 6. We're on lap 6 of the race, and this is as close as it has been throughout this race. Excellent competitive driving between these guys, and clean as well. We've got just the one retirement so far. That is Lewis, who was a race winner last season in F7 at this track. Well, he's most certainly not going to be victorious here today in F6. So Trosmike continuing to head out in front, and we'll just look at Kart behind, because he's half a second behind Chiquito, who's not going to have DRS at the moment. So this is an opportunity for Kart to take advantage and actually get in front of him here.
Yeah, the battles are really up and down the order at the moment. Kart in 8th place has gained pole positions off the start, now in the DRS of Chiquito. But would it even be I don't know if it'd be the right decision to make this move here. He's already quite low on his DRS, as is Chiquito. These guys both sort of battling so far in the race. May just be smart to let Chiquito use up his soft tyres and sort of get pulled along in this part of the race, because up the road ahead and they're going to lose time to the top 6 no matter what. The top 6, without any sort of intervention in the race by a safety car, looks like they're running away with it at the moment. But Kart, I think his focus is going to be just to try and get that 7th place. With the medium tyres on his car at the moment, it's going to be important that he just keeps his nose clean and perhaps waits until later in the Grand Prix when he gets a chance to use the stickier, softer compound of tyre.
So Jonah in 2nd place, not thinking about a move on Trosmike just yet, although Trosmike is back in the lead, of which got the jump on him at the start. But I think the top 6 are just going to be sort of almost stagnated, because they don't want to sort of risk a needless manoeuvre as Bottle gets a time penalty for track limits now, so he is now, well, it's technically the third driver because Lewis did pick up a penalty earlier, but according to the screen, he's one of only 2 drivers to have a time penalty. As Davey has got a good run. Jonah made a mistake coming out of turn 14, and I think he's going to get moved on here is Davey as he gets into the slipstream. DRS open for both drivers. Davey will have more momentum, slightly more momentum. He'll pull alongside, but the only thing is, Trasmike is on considerably less speed as they approach turn 1. Davey to the outside on the curb, side by side with the Haas. Davey to the outside, he'll have the high ground on the exit. And is this going to be a change for second place? The answer is yes. Davey takes it.
Great move there from Dave to get up into second place, but this might not be over yet. Jonah right behind him still looks like he's going to play it safe and sit back into third place. But Jonah sitting in what was arguably one of the better positions in straight in second, very much in a position to sort of pick and choose whether he wanted to take the lead or not. Now finds himself in third, which is a much trickier place to work from, whilst you're still very much in the fight for the lead. You don't have the advantage of your driver in front having no DRS. He's now, well, he's very much now just a part of the train rather than sort of being at the front of it, so it's going to be much tougher for him now. He's on equal footing with the car in front of him, so he's not going to get that extra sort of advantage of the pulling along of DRS. Of course, he will have it, but with Davey having it also in front of him, he won't really feel any boost from the DRS being off, by being on, sorry. But Davey into second. It'll be interesting to see if he can put any inroads into Trasmike out front, but at the moment, 7/10 for lead it is for the McLaren driver.
Yeah, so Davey within DRS range to have a go on Trasmike on the pit straight. Trasmike is currently around about 30% ERS, and Davey's around about the same. So I don't expect to be too much difference, except that Davey has the DRS. Trasmike was not using the DRS because he was not within a second of the car ahead, as he is the lead car at the moment. Chiquito still ahead of Kart Racer in the fight for 7th place. And we're seeing Hershey down the inside of Vandenberg for 9th place. Hershey not able to get through. Vandenberg is going to be able to use the DRS. Hershey's going to get into the slipstream though. He may make a lunge down the inside of turn 5. Here he goes, look. Down the inside, they bang wheels. Hershey gets his elbows out, forces Vandenberg out wide, but Vandenberg seems to have kept the position, albeit by going off the racetrack. He's letting through, look.
And he's given the position up there. I think that may well have been an illegal overtake for him going off the road. I think he was forced off the road. He didn't get much of a choice in the matter. But still, he was all 4 wheels off the racetrack, as that's a time penalty there for Jake Marsh, down in 16th place, free second time penalty there. One of 3 drivers to get a penalty so far in today's race. But the top 6 closer than ever by the looks of things. Davies caught in a 10th or so on our race leader, Trasmike. 40% ERS, a very slim ERS, similar ERS to the driver in second. It's all pretty much equal up at the front at the moment. Dave doing a bit of weaving on the straight there, perhaps not wanting to take the race lead, or perhaps trying to convey a message from the drivers near him, but at the moment these guys are very much happy to sit in a line. But I doubt that'll last long once we get to the pit window, and then again towards the end of the race these guys are going to want to fight for every last position. But at the moment a 4-second gap between 6th and 7th. These top 6 are just in a league of their own at the moment.
Is this the time for Kart to actually make a move on Chiquito here? Because he's now 4.5 seconds behind this strike in 6th place. I would think this has got to be the time, or around about the time, where Kart has just got to make a move here and not get stuck behind the Aston Martin. Because surely those on the soft compound are going to be suffering by this stage.
Yeah, you have to assume at this stage of the race the mediums are starting to become the quicker tyre. That could potentially explain why we've seen Hersey in 9th position there get up ahead of Van der Brugge. That could well start to explain why we're seeing the progress of these medium runners. However, of course, the soft tyres I mentioned, tyre wear isn't that high, so they could, if anything, be quite similar at this point in the race, and it could come down to tyre performance. But I think at the moment, Kart, look at the ERS difference between the 8th place of Kart and the 7th of Chiquito. Kart, I think he's using this as an opportunity just to save up his batteries, just to get a chance to push hard later in the race. But interestingly, up in the top 3, a bit of a gap as, oh, is that into the pits? It is. Jonah into the pits. And he does get it down to speed, no penalties there. Perhaps duped by a weave from the Mercedes drivers. They're battling away for 3rd place here. Yagazan battling with Rafa as they go through turn 1. Hard defences, that's the Red Bull getting himself in the mix here as well. Still absolutely wheel to wheel as they come back up the hill. A tricky corner here. Will they all survive? They make their way down towards the hairpin. The Red Bull and the Ferrari, nose to tail. The Ferrari's going to go, sending it up the inside. Will that make the apex? It does not. Way off the racetrack there for Rafa. He's probably going to lose another position here as the Red Bull's going to try and get her out on the outside of him. Can he pull this one off? Oh, he's going to back out of it there, not quite able to do it. But that has given a chance to the top two to pull away from the battle for P3. And I'm sure Chiquito and Cart will be licking their lips at the battle up ahead of them as they see those guys holding each other up with their battles. And that gap is now down to 3.4 seconds, so it is making a difference to those guys further down the order.
Yeah, and this is disfavoured Yagashan now because he's out of DRS range, so that'll play into Davis Anderson. We've got an instant sector 2. It looks like one of the... Is that Jake Marsh has just gone for a spin, I think? Yeah, it is. So Marsh having a very disappointing time with it. As we watch Mike come round. Is he coming into the pits? Yes, he is. So Davey actually decides to stay out for another lap. He's got the DRS as well, so at least that will give him a little bit more straight line speed on this occasion. But that's as good as it will get for him. Rafa also into the pits for Ferrari. But the battle we want to be looking is Jonah. Where is he? Because he's coming through turn 14 now. And I think he's actually going to complete an undercut.
Yeah, he hasn't had any traffic on this lap as far as I can see, so he's had nice clean air onto his car, which means he will, whilst he wouldn't have got DRS, he's going to get that grip advantage from the medium. He's going to go for the undercut. Will it be enough? As out of the pits it comes, Mike, and he is going to be ahead, but will at last. Big run through the first corner. Jonah's going to go to the outside. It's close to contact, nearly contact to make their way into turn 3 now. They're so close as they make their way back up the hill. There's a DRS zone here. This gives Jonah a chance to make the move. He goes a little bit wide. That may cost him a chance, and Jonah not going to push this one, and he's going to slot in to a net second place here. I think if they had battle, they may have given Davey a chance to overcut the pair of them. But the pace between the two very close at this stage of the race. Jonah nearly pulling off the undercut strategy, but just wasn't to be on this occasion, and loses out in this battle, but still maintains his original position, so he can't be too disappointed. As into the wall, that's Jake Marsh out of the race. Yeah, he's gone for crash. Could that be a safety car?
It could well, but
potentially change the race. Into the pits come the leader.
Yeah. So Davey in, as is this chart. Yagashan stays out, which is no surprise because his teammate is having to take that box. I thought he's been stacking up behind. So Yagashan takes the lead of the race. Chiquito in second place. Karts up to third then in the McLaren. Of course, he's still yet to stop, but he is going on a longer first stint as he's on the mediums. But Jake's race has ended in retirement. So both Williams cars now out of the Portuguese Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's not their day today, is it? Just not having the consistency and the grip that they would have needed.
Here we go, look.
Drivers seem to have some issues. He comes out behind the pair of them, but close enough to still be in the DRS, and they could all be caught out here. The two Alpines are battling just ahead of them. These two Alpines, if they keep focusing on each other, this could absolutely nose to tail. With the two Alpines directly ahead, this could mix up the battle for the win.
Yeah, Michalizzi running in 11th place at the moment ahead of his teammate, but they've got to watch their mirrors because they've got the three drivers effectively battling for the race lead. I'll tell you one driver where we do definitely need to keep an eye on, maybe two actually, Kart Racer and Hershey, who are running in third and fourth place. Now, if Mike, Jonah and Davey get held up here, they could all of a sudden end up losing effectively the race lead later on, as Mike makes a move to the outside of the Alpine. He has to really fight through. Bang the wheels off the track! Yeah, there was contact. Mike had to go off circuit. Yagashan is in the pits, but Jonah has just got in front of Mike. Or so he thought, because Mike's back up.
Off the road is there. Sorry to interrupt there. Jonah got forced off the road as well by the Alpine. At least they're dishing out their blocking equally at the moment. But these guys continue to battle here.
So on the pit straight they come. It's going to be a drag race down to turn 1. There's Jonah looking to make over on Mike. Mike also making a move. And look at this, Davey. Look at that. All the way down to turn 1. Can they all get through cleanly? The answer to that question is yes. They do make a little bit of contact. And that's the Alpine going off the track there. That's Micheletto, I think it is. That's just run wide. So he's having to concede the position. There's Jonah having to go off circuit. He needs to be careful. He doesn't gain the position by exceeding track limits. Davey on the inside as well as Jonah goes to the outside of the Alpine into turn 5. Does he make the move stick? He needs to be careful not to put all the... Oh, there's contact! That's the Alpine off the track. So Micheletto off the track. Didn't quite leave enough room, unfortunately. He's able to continue, but he will not have liked that contact one bit as Mike makes a move on Micheletto as they go into...
Damage for Jonah. He has got front wing damage here. He's led a couple cars through. Sorry to interrupt you there, but Jonah with wing damage here. And that is his chance at the win thrown away here in this Portuguese race here in PSGL F6. That is heartbreak for Jonah. He was looking like he could potentially fight for the win in this one, but that traffic has cost him more than any other driver. And Coletto's in the wall, and he's out of the race. Coletto has crashed out. Could this be a safety car? No safety car for the Jake Marshall incident earlier, but could this incident bring out a safety car? Just yellow flags at the moment, as into the pits comes Jonah to get a new front wing on his car. But it looks like we're staying green once more, and this race continues to develop as we see more cars getting caught up with the Alpine.
Yeah, Jonah will be furious with that, but to be fair, they were fighting for position. The Alpines did not have to move out of the way because they were not lapped cars. So Jonah will be absolutely disgusting himself. He had hopes for a safety car with that car of Micheletto retiring at turn 12. And look at that, the other Haas there of Vandenberg losing it. Now he's on old soft, so he is surely going to be struggling. But at least he can get on some mediums. He's going to be on fresher mediums than those who have already pitted in.
I think I'd have to guess that Van der Brugge has seen all the drama we've had further down the order here with these guys pitting and trying to get ahead. He's got a battle wheel to between the Red Bull and the Mercedes up the hill. Yakazan gets ahead there into what is 13th place at the moment, but that will change soon. But these guys really have been separated by the Alpine drivers, and it has mixed up the order in this race. But as I think Van der Brugge may have seen the drama we've seen further down the order and was hoping for a safety car. It wasn't to be in the end, but an interesting strategy there to go slightly longer in this race. Kart up at the front of the order. He has got a nice little piece of track at the moment. They've got nice clear air, and I think he's quite happy in that clean air at the moment because it seems no one else has any.
So, Kart going on. He's not having to fight with anyone at the moment. This is playing into his hands. So when he rejoins on a set of softs, he's going to be going like a dart, sticking to a dartboard, I should say, hitting that triple 20 or whatever you want to call it, whatever analogy you want to throw in there. But it doesn't change the fact that Kart is looking ever so quick at the moment. Already won here last season in F8 from pole position. Can he win in F6 from 14th on the grid? That would be a brilliant start to his campaign. Very dominant in F8, worthy of his place in F6, and this race exemplifies just that.
Indeed, up at the front and all the way ahead of any other driver on the same strategy, and that's impressive. Of course, we don't know where he's going to end up in this race, of course, with the difference in strategy and that sort of struggling grid position. But 3.7 seconds ahead of the nearest driver on the same strategy is absolutely massive when you compare it to those on the soft, those that started on the soft tyre. It's only a 6/10 gap between the top two in that strategy. So really, I think, just defines how good of a race Kart has had in this one. And the battle for the net race lead is going to restart. Davey in the DRS of Trasmike doesn't look like he's going to be close enough to make any move work, but you can see the difference that has happened in the levels of ERS between the former race leaders here. They have all lost so much because of the traffic issues they had at that midpoint in the race.
So Trasmike in 6th place. He's got a bit of clear track ahead of him. Bottle is 9 seconds in front of him. He's going to be one of those going onto the soft compound for the last stint. You are going to lose a lot of time in the pits there, I think, so I don't think he's going to have enough time to make up the deficit. As you can see, Rafa is sitting in 8th place, but will be 3rd once everyone else has pitted. Yagashan in 9th, Ischai 10th. We've got Michelizzi in 11th, as Jonah gets a time penalty. He's down at the back anyway, but just to add insult to injury to his race, he's got another 3 seconds, which will be added at the end of the race.
Yeah, it's a shame for Jody. He had such a promising race going on for him, but in the end it just hasn't been what he needed in today's race. And it is a massive shame there to see so much potential that he had in the early stages, of course, taking the lead on that one and an impressive move up the inside. But yeah, I look forward to seeing him bounce back next race. He'll have more motivation than ever after what happened today. So I think he'll really be looking to try and get himself and reprove, if that's a word, reprove himself at the front of the order and show that he is worthy of fighting for wins here. As into the pits comes Michelizzi, and he finally makes a pit stop. One of the drivers that you could argue has had a major role in this race, despite probably looking currently like they're going to end up outside the points. They were one of the 2 Alpines involved in that battle with the lead group, so definitely has had an exciting race. But yeah, that's one of the crucial drivers in the race, pitting for some soft tyres, and the first of the medium runners to pit to the soft. So perhaps we could see pit stops from the top drivers soon, which would be good news for those that have already pitted, because I imagine if you're Traz, Mike, Davey, Rafa, or any of the other top drivers out here, you'd be very nervous of seeing those slower cars up ahead of you after what happened with the 2 Alpine drivers.
And another thing to add is that if we get a safety car right now, that will play into the hands of those that are ahead of him.
And there is a crash. Sorry to interrupt you there. That's Mikulitsu has gone around. He's kept out of the wall. But as you mentioned, the safety car, it's a mistake from Mikulitsu.
Yeah, so Mikulitsu, I don't think he hit the barrier. I think it was just a spin as he went to the outside runoff area of turn 4, not the inside, which is where the inside barrier is. But he's carried on anyway in 16th place, despite coming in for a set of these soft compound. It's unlikely that Mikulitsu will be in the points by the end of this race. This is Fruitful, who's running in 3rd place. We haven't spoken much about him throughout tonight, so he's running in a good position in 3rd place. I just wonder where he's going to end up by the time he does pit. But just like Hershey and Kart Racer, and in fact Straducci and Bottle, they're going to be on soft tyres towards the end and possibly go for a fastest lap and get into the top 10 as well. So Rafa is sitting in behind Jagershon as these two are fighting what is effectively 4th place, or 3rd place even.
Indeed, yeah, these guys battling away. Just think it's going to be exciting to see at the end of the race. Those guys that have pitted to the softs, I think, whilst I don't think they're perhaps going to be in the fight for the win, they're certainly going to be fighting their way back up the order. So we could see some exciting scraps towards the end of the race to see where the soft and medium tyre runners sort of, well, they end up at the end of the day, because at the moment it's sort of hard to exactly say where they're all going to finish in today's event. Because of course they're still very much split on whether they may pit. As I say, that cart into the pits. So this could be the moment we get an idea of where exactly these two strategies line up in this race.
Has he come in a little bit too early? Because he's having to do 14 laps on those soft compound tyres. I know they've got less fuel in the cars now to what they had at the beginning, but I just wonder maybe he's coming a lap or two too soon. But he's coming back out now. He should rejoin just in front of Vandenberg in, I think he's going to rejoin in 10th place, I would think. Yeah, out he comes in 10th position. So he's on course, potentially. Now he's on the soft compound. He could even go for the fastest lap, couldn't he?
Yeah, I would say I don't think it's impossible now with 14 laps on the soft compound tyre. If those can hold out for the rest of the race, which in terms of punctures I think that isn't an issue, but in terms of just raw pace, I mean, if those tyres can stay up to speed for a while, I wouldn't rule him out in a chance of a podium at the moment, because he's only, 6 seconds off. If those soft tyres provide the grip required, that he only really needs to go half a second a lap quicker, which sounds like a lot, but with the tyre strategies being split now, those on the mediums on older, harder tyres, in theory, Kart Racer could quite possibly go half a second a lap quicker than them, and if he keeps that up, he could well get in the fight for a podium. And if that battle does end up being just a straight DRS fight for that final spot on the podium, it isn't going to matter which tyres you're on. So if those tyres are warm in the final couple of laps, it shouldn't matter too much as the top two enter the pits.
Well, make that the top 3 because Stradosi is in as well. So Trustmike will take back over the lead of this Portuguese Grand Prix. But looking at Dave, who's now within the DRS range to have a go, I would think. Trustmike's conserving his DRS. Is he conserving it enough though? Because Dave is getting a good run on him. Can't quite go for it into turn 1. So Trustmike holding the race lead, but is he going to be able to do that for the remaining 13 laps? This is going to be a tall order, you would think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it could end up being a matter of sort of, he may actually have to let Davey through on the penultimate lap so that he gets DRS to the final lap. But the risk in doing that is that it then costs later on. If he does that and then doesn't get a good enough exit and throws away the race win that way, he's going to be kicking himself at giving up the race lead. So it's going to come down to the confidence he has in the car. He needs to know what he can do in the car.
Oh,
if he knows...
there's a bit of contact between Kart Racer and Chiquito. Sorry to interrupt you, Jackson, but Kart had just got by him, and as he was getting by him, I think Chiquito refused to accept that Kart got in front of him. We see him swerve round as he approached turn 5, gone through the polystyrene blocks, rejoined the circuit, and as Kart was already alongside, he was already ahead of him by the point they made contact. But it was just really peculiar in terms of the way Chiquito just didn't accept that he was already through. He's letting Vandenberg through now, and I think he's got front wing damage here.
He must indeed. He's pulling over, letting all the cars through. Does not want to cause any issues, which is very respectful of him there to do that. But Kart now in clear air. This is going to be an exciting place to race. He's 4.6 seconds back at the start of lap 23, so or lap 22, sorry. So it is very much all to play for up at the front of the order as Davey continues to sit behind the race leader. Jagazan is just desperate for Davey to make the move, I think. I think as soon as those two battle for the lead. That's going to allow the rest of this top group into the DRS as the leaders. And when that happens, we've got, well, a 5-way scrap for the lead. Maybe even 6 if Kart Racing get himself into the fight as well.
Yeah, Chiquito into the pits for Aston Martin. Now, I would imagine he'll go onto the set of soft compounds, so he'll at least try and go for a fastest lap or something like that. In fact, no, he's retiring from the race. So Chiquito out after what's been a respectful drive, but he's coming together with Kart Racer, pretty much put a dent to his race and decided that it was not worth carrying on. So Chiquito, the 4th driver out of this race. Davey still sitting in behind Kart Racer. As Jagershan closing as well. So we've got 2 Mercs in the top 3. Ishchite 4th for Red Bull, Rafa 5th for Ferrari, and it's Kart Racer who's 7.5 seconds off the lead in 6th place. But remember, he's only just come in for the softs. Those ahead of him are on old mediums.
Well, I said that he would need to gain about half a second a lap. He has gained 6 tenths in that last lap, and if you just look at his ERS, it is so much better than anyone else up at the front of the order at the moment. So I think it is quite possible he gets himself in the mix here. With 11 full laps remaining in this race, Kart Racer would just, well, in theory, as long as he finds sort of 3.5 seconds, he doesn't need to get those 4 seconds. As long as he can just get within DRS, he can then sort of cruise up to the back of them, perhaps a bit more carefully. And I mean, he's already matched the situation he was in back, taking minds all the way back to before anyone pitted in this race. He was about 4 seconds off the lead. Leading 6 drivers, so he's already limited the damage lost, limited the damage that he took from being out on those tyres for longer than the leaders. So the undercut effect that the leaders had on him already been nullified, and a car up in 6th place and reeling in those top guys. They'll perhaps be a little nervous at that, especially if you're one of the drivers towards the back of the train, knowing that when he arrives, they'll be one of the first to receive the McLaren, and it seems like this could get exciting towards the end of this race.
I would imagine so, as Kart Racer's taken another, well, looks like another half a second out on this lap on the leader here as he's coming through. Now, 2 things needs to be very frugal here. 1 is the ERS, and 2 is tyres, because he has to go through and complete 14 laps on the softs. So Kart Racer just needs to be careful not to take too much life out of those tyres too soon. Catching is one thing, passing is quite another.
Indeed it is, as that's 3 wide down to turn 1, I believe it briefly was there, for the 7th position. IFR Fruitful gets up into there with Hershey behind, and Van der Brugge behind the pair of them. Van der Brugge on the medium tyres, struggling more at this stage in the race, and could well, looking at it at the moment, could well drop outside the points. Just those medium tyres at this point in the race and not giving the grip that is required. However, it looks like a mistake there from this Manuel Hershey is going to allow Van der Brugge to have a look, but only a look as he continues to run in that 9th position. But the leaders still close as ever. These top 2 look set to battle all the way down to the final lap of the race.
Yeah, so Fruitful passed the Aston Martin of Hershey for 7th place. Nip and tuck through turn 1, but they got through cleanly, which is good to see. Kart Racer now 3 seconds behind Rafa as he closes in. The gap between him and the leader has come down to 6.3, so he's taken another 7/10 of a second out throughout this lap. And Kart Racer very much winning the laps, but he's still got another 9 laps to do and get to the end. I just worry if he takes too much life out of it, in terms of the amount of tyre life he'll have left, will be about the same as what those on the mediums who came in earlier on will have. Jagershan with a time penalty, Jackson.
That is big there for the Mercedes driver. That means he will now drop out of a podium position and could well find himself dropping out of the top 5 as well if Kart Racer does continue his progression. I'd say a costly mistake, but of course it could happen to anyone else in this league group as well, so don't rule that out as the top 2. These guys are pushing so hard, and I think Jagershan may have just taken that penalty and gone, okay, screw this, I'm not holding back anymore, I'm not playing safe, because he is now within a second of the top 2. He is pushing hard. He now knows that he has got nothing to lose in this battle. He needs to put the pressure on. He needs to force these guys into making similar mistakes and costing them, and forcing them, I should say, to make take track limit penalties. So he is really piling on the pressure, and I think Ischik and Rafa behind are loving this new energy that's been brought to Jagershan, because he is now pulling them all back up to the lead group, and the race to lead has gone from a 2-car fight to a 5-car fight.
Yeah, most certainly. I think what Jagershan's going to have to hope here is his teammate Davey makes the move on Trustway, but not only make a move, but get his elbows out on him so that Jagerson can actually close in and take advantage of the open door. But Davey not able to do it on this occasion. Now, if you're Davey, what do you do now?
I think your best bet at this rate is he just needs to keep an eye on the situation. If he has someone that's watching the stream, which would be very helpful in this scenario, he needs to know what, or have at least an idea of what Trasmike's ERS is like. Now he can see the red flashing light at the back. He knows that he's struggling, which means as long as he sees that red flashing light, he can wait as long as he wants. He can wait until the final lap of the race to make that overtake. Because as long as that red flashing light is on the rear of the car, he knows he has the power with the DRS and the ERS ability to just fly past on the straight and take the lead. However, as soon as he sees that light go out and he sees just a darker end of the McLaren, that's when he needs to think, when do I make the move? Because in that scenario, he can't necessarily afford to wait to the end. Because if Trasmike has enough ERS to hold the lead on the final lap, that's Davey's one chance thrown away. So he needs to really think about this and be smart, because taking the lead now could well be a safer option, but equally waiting for the final lap is probably the more likely option to give him a win in this race.
So Trasmike is on 10% ERS, Davey on 40% ERS. So Trasmike, I think, is going to either suffer here or is going to be very, very clever. It's through the slow corners is where he's actually regenerating, if you say, the ERS battery. So Davey needs to really think, do I go for it or do I not? And the last thing he wants to be doing is end up in a collision and throwing away a potential top 6 finish.
I know from experience around the circuit, ERS is hard to find here. As soon as you start to deploy it, he's in a situation now where he's just stuck with about 15%. And because of the layout of this circuit, so much high speed and so little braking zones. No, there's not many very heavy braking zones around this lap. Most of the corners that you'd expect to be a heavy braking zone are usually followed by quite a short straight, whereas those that you'd expect to be, all the corners that would have a heavy braking zone have sort of been widened and lengthened in a way that makes them harder to regenerate your battery on. So it means around a circuit like this, you just can't regenerate your battery at all. Because you're using it more than you can regenerate it, which means you can sort of stay at a status quo, but it's near impossible to actually recover around this place, which means Trasmike, he's doing his best to try and recover in this one, but there's just absolutely nothing he can do at this point in the race other than just hope for the best and hope that Davey maybe takes the lead early, or perhaps just that he can somehow fight off Davey when he does eventually make the move.
So Davey right up the gearbox of Trasmike as they go through turn 4. One driver has dropped back from the leaders actually, is Ruffer, who's over a couple of seconds behind this strike, and Kart Racer's within DRS range of him. So we've got 2 battles here, one for the lead and one for 5th place, which could become 4th because of Jagersson's time penalty. And another driver that might get in the way actually is Sparks, because he's just going through turn 9 now. I hope he doesn't hold the leaders. I don't think he should do because he's on fresher tyres, but I think he should be alright actually. So Trasmike will be focusing on what's going on behind, not what's in front of him.
Yeah, it's getting exciting here. Kart within DRS of Rafa 2 seconds off this pack now. He is having some struggles late in this race, which means he probably will miss out on getting a top 5 finish here, because he's almost outside of the penalty range of Jagerson, but Kart could well pull him back up to lead, so maybe it'd be a smart move here from Rafa to let the McLaren through in the hope that he can pull him back to the lead group.
We want to go to the battle for 5th because Kart is now within DRS range into the slipstream of the Ferrari. Will he have a go into turn 1? Does Rafa fight it? He holds him off for now, but I think Kart Racer's next opportunity. Oh, he's got a time penalty now as Kart, unfortunately. That's a very poor dent. At least he won't lose any positions from where he is because he's nearly 8 seconds in front of Fruitful, but that's a really bad dent now, isn't it?
Indeed, that costs him really any chance of getting up the order, which is a shame to see for him. But it does now mean that we've got a straight fight from these guys, all on very similar tyres, all, with the exception of Jagerson, all on no penalties. It is going to get exciting here. Jagerson, if he is in a party with Davey, these guys could perhaps do some strategy games, because Jagerson's got nothing to lose at this point. He's got the penalty, he can take some risks, he can take a 50-50 sort of dive bomb move that could end badly. Whereas his teammate Davey has got a lot to lose. He's very much in the fight for the win here. And Ischak, I'm sure, will want to be trying to get up into that 3rd position, because at the moment it is he's sort of going to get cost any chance of the victory by the Mercedes of Yagazan. However, he does sort of confirm himself a podium by just staying in 4th place, so it's a decision for him whether to push or just to hang back and pick up the scraps and to take that podium position away. But at the moment, it is still very much a duel out front between Trasmike and Davey, who is so close to the back of the McLaren.
Oh, kart racers just got in front of Rafa, but he caught the inside curve and nearly dropped it, but he caught it in time. He's got past Rafa on the road, but he needs to pull out a 3-second margin on him if he's going to finish in 5th place. I suppose if he catches up to Ischite, he might just battle it out with Jagershon, because he's on the same time penalty as he is.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, but I think he's very much relying on these guys battling out front. He wants to catch them now. The soft tyres, they just don't seem to have that big an advantage anymore, which means that whilst they are a little bit quicker, they're not they're not quick enough for him to reel in the leaders unless they start to battle. If they do start to battle, both him and Rafa could well get back into the mix here for the battle for the lead. But at the moment, it is Trasmike leading the way. Davey pushing so hard to keep up with him. Trasmike still just unable to really recover any RS. Davey just able to I mean, he's got 56% in the battery. That is so much more than Trasmike. That could possibly be sort of an impossible to fight amount of ERS. It could well be a scenario where if you're on the final lap, Trasmike just gets blown past with no chance to even fight back into the corner, or even down the straight later in the lap. It could be almost an embarrassing end to this race for Trasmike, but he knows he has done the best he has so far, and whether he wins it or not, he's pretty much locked himself into being the driver with the most laps led today. And the McLaren team, I must say, have spent most of this race out in the lead, if not every single lap out in the lead, with the exception, I believe, of lap 1, where Jonah led. But yeah, Trasmike pushing as hard as he can to try and build that gap up, just to give himself a chance at fighting this move from Davey. Davey, I see they're using his ERS a little bit. He is having to push to keep up with Trasmike, despite having slightly fresher tyres. Trasmike just has that raw pace to pull away. But at this point, it is still very much who to play for between these top two. Yagazan. It is truly going to be an exciting finish to this race.
Very exciting indeed, and I do worry for Trasmike because I think he's going to struggle to hold off Davey. I don't think Davey's going to go for it this time, because otherwise Trasmike will get the DRS the next time around. But he's got to be wary of his teammate, although I don't think Jagershon will make a lunge on his teammate. There's no point, because he's got that time penalty hanging over him anyway. But he just wants to protect his teammate from those behind, so that Davey can actually have a good run on Trasmike as we begin the penultimate lap of this race. DRS open then on... Go on then, Jackson.
I was going to say, I think Davey may have been going for it there, and I think he is, as he is going to try and make a move to the lead of the race. Is he going to go for it? He's going to go to the outside of turn 1.
Oh, contact!
Oh, but wide and around.
Oh, my goodness!
Into the path of the field. That's a big drama late in this race. He's got wing damage. Yagazan could have wing damage as well. It's going to allow Kart Racer up the order as well. Oh, and Kart Racer spins his teammate. Trasmike just about holds onto it though. But that is just completely changed this race. What on earth happened there?
So Davey through. He went for the outside manoeuvre, but I wonder if he got caught out on the curb or something, did Trasmike, whilst he was defending. But either way, he's got front wing down. Look at that, it strikes through! It strike passes Davey for the race lead. I think Davey's got front wing damage, but either way, it strike down the inside into turn 8 to take the lead.
Sat back. I said he might just sit back and pick up the scraps. That's exactly what he's done. He didn't involve himself in all of that drama. He just kept his nose clean. He avoided the carnage, and he comes around the final corner with 1 lap left in this race after this one. It is Ischite who leads the Portuguese Grand Prix, with Kart Racer now up into second. What a crazy final 3 laps we have here.
Yeah, it was bound to happen at some point. We just didn't know what order it was going to end up as a result. Davey passes Kart Racer back into second place, but Kart Racer is going to complete a switchback. I think Davey's going to struggle, to be honest with you. Although if he stays within 3 seconds of him, he'll go back into second place, but he'll rue that coming together. You can clearly see on the left-hand side, front wing damage. He's going off the track. He needs to be careful. He does not exceed track limits, otherwise that'll be a penalty coming his way. But we're just looking at Rafa, because he could all of a sudden get on the podium here at this rate.
I think he's got a full wing from the look of it, so he could well get himself ahead of both Mercedes cars, but I'm sure both of them have damage. They're struggling. Kart Racer's going to have to put in the lap of his life if he wants to get this second place. Davey just, I mean, he's going to have to do the same if he wants to get the second place. Both of these drivers are in a scenario where they both have to absolutely nail the lap to get any chance of that second place. Both of them could probably fall back onto a P3 here. Rafa trying to find a way past the Mercedes, but there's just no room. As up the inside goes Yagazan on his teammate. That could be costly for Davey. Davey goes wide. Rafa's going to get the pair of them up into third place. Can he do it?
Oh, Concertina!
Around goes Yagazan. He spins off at the penultimate corner. But it's Chike who will win the Portuguese Grand Prix. What a drive from the Rebel driver. But who will complete the podium after all that drama?
So Ishai wins the Portuguese Grand Prix for Red Bull. Rafa over the line in second place after time penalties have been applied. Kart Racer third for McLaren. An excellent drive from 14th on the grid. Even with that penalty, Davey down to 4th place for Mercedes. He will rue that. Hershey is 5th for Aston Martin. Fruitful 6th. Jagershan down to 7th. Thunderberg in 8th. Stradossi 9th. Charlie in 10th. Bockel 11th. Trasmike will be 12th. Jonah 13th. Jasak 14th. Michelizzi 15th. And Sparks down the lap in 16th place. So the two drivers on the front row not scoring any points. Ishak in the Red Bull is the first race winner of F6 in season 30. And to Jonah's consolation, he gets the fastest lap.
Well, that was an exciting end there. That was some. I don't think I restricted that. We looked at all the different scenarios that could happen, but that was certainly not one that we imagined. Yagazan all the way down to 7th after all the drama. Mercedes looked like the top team today. Them and McLaren looked like the two guys to beat all race long, and that's how it ends up. Truly crazy end to this race, and you got to feel for those that started off in such great positions. In those final few laps, with just a few laps left in the race, we had Trasmike in the lead, and it all went wrong for some of these guys. But Kart Racer, the game gives the driver of the day, and I couldn't think of a more deserving driver than that. 14th on the grid to third in the race, despite getting a penalty. What a drive for all the McLaren driver! But it is Jake who wins here in Portugal and starts off the season in perfect fashion. What a surprising end to this race that I don't think anyone predicted.
Yeah, and Luke's coming in saying he's very, very happy. Guys, we did it again. So he wins ahead of Rafa in second place. Kart Racer third. An excellent drive from 14th on the grid. Davey in 4th. Hershey in 5th. Fruitful 6th. Jagershan 7th. Vandenberg in 8th. Stradossi 9th. And Charlie Moon in 10th for Alfa Romeo. Bockel 11th outside the points. Trasmike in a very disappointing 12th. Jonah 13th. Could have been so much more for him as well. Jasak 14th, Michelizzi 15th, Sparks the last of finishes in 16th, Chiquito, Marcoletto, Marsh and Lewis did not finish. Well, as it stands in the championship after one round, Ishak has 16 points, Rafa has 12 and Kart Racer has 10. So, after a brilliant ending to that first race of the season there, Jackson, give us your last thoughts before we close the stream for tonight.
Well, it was an unpredictable race from start to finish. So many drivers proved themselves today as drivers to keep an eye on for the championship, and I think it's just hard to believe what we just watched there today, and I can't wait to see some of the recoveries that those guys put in, because while some guys had the luck on their side today, others certainly didn't, and I think it's not about how you fall down, it's how you get back up. I think that's the phrase that people say. So that's going to be an exciting one next week. We really have set ourselves up for an exciting season here in F6.
Yeah, and that's just the start of it. There are 14 rounds still to come, the first of those being at Silverstone next week. Jackson, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure joining you in the commentary box for the first time. And, I can't wait to do it all again next week. And thanks to all those who have been watching, not just F6, but all the other races that have been happening this evening, PlayStation F1 to 8. Well done to all those that have won out this evening, and we look forward to seeing you back again in a week's time. The next round, for whatever division it is, the PC tiers begin the second round of the championship at Silverstone on Wednesday night. So do make sure you tune in for then. And by doing so, do make sure you click that subscribe button. Yes, click that subscribe button and you'll be notified as to when the races are happening as they are. And all that leaves me to say is thank you very much for joining us, and we can't wait to do it all again next week. I'm Tom Cairns, he's Jackson Turner, and we'll speak to you again soon when the PSGL return.